So I am ready for Ohio.
All right, Dean, we're good.
We're good?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna call this meeting to order. We start with the pledge of allegiance. One over there. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are on to development. The meeting has been properly posted and all no posting places. And I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
We'll make a motion to the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. We've got the minutes from February 22nd, the 15th and 16th of March.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 22nd, 6 p.m. open session, March 15th, 5 p.m. open closed session, and March 16th, 5 p.m. open closed session as presented.
I'll second.
You got second by Jennifer. Any additions, corrections? Then all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. We are on to the financial report and bill listing. Pretty quiet in here.
Gotta find more. Yeah, here we go. All right. Take a motion to approve voucher listing, general fund payroll check. Direct deposit 900053720 through 900053825 in the amount of $155,580.45. Direct deposit number is 900053826 through 900053930 in the amount of $140,344.98. Wire transfer for payroll number 2020217 through 2020243, $304,153.07 for total payroll of $600,060.08. Accounts payable check number is 54627 through 54648, the amount of $45,669.05. AP wire transfer numbers 2020233 through 2020235 in the amount of $2,540.61. Credit card transaction 22221 through 22521 in the amount of $15,284.71. ACH direct deposit number 20210050 through 20210056 in the amount of $250. For a total accounts payable of $63,744.97 and total disbursements of $663,761.77.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bill listing and financial report. Are there any questions? Then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. We are on to delegations to be heard. No one signed in to delegate, nothing. So then we are past that. And we are on to the district administrator's report. We've got one donation.
We got one donation for PTO for two different purposes. So we'd like to thank PTO for a 4th grade teacher grant for Miss Katie Schaefer, who purchased flashlights and dice for some activities in her classroom, and Leah Johnson at the intermediate school for our art program purchased 35 pairs of titanium coated scissors. So need a lot of cutting there, I guess. So again, just looking for a motion to accept the donations as presented, and thank you for PTO.
With a huge thank you to our PTO, I will make a motion to accept the donations as presented. Second.
We have a second. All in favor, then say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Personnel actions.
We have two personnel actions this evening. We'd like to thank Ashley Kubanek for her 3 to 4 years of service. I can't remember what the higher date, but it's been for quite some time. She worked as an instructional assistant in our special ed area. So we wish Ashley the best of luck in her new position, working as a child's counselor. So you can see her letter of resignation there. So the second personnel action, very excited to introduce or recommend Mrs. Maria Kruchowski as our next director of curriculum instruction. Maria has come through our interview process. We had a team of about 16 individuals consisting of board members, administration, support staff, teachers, and with her experience coming from Whitefish Bay the last 8 years as their director of teaching and learning, she has done this job that we are looking to have and bring into our district. So we are very fortunate that Maria applied, and she is a Merton resident as well. So going to be much shorter commute now. So very much shorter commute. So we're excited to have Maria join our team starting July 1st as well too. So we wish Maria the best of luck in her transition out at Whitefish Bay, and wish her luck in this transition too as well. We're excited to have her join our team. So just looking for two motions, one to approve the Ashley Kubanek letter of resignation as presented, as well as the board recommending, or I'm recommending the board make a motion to approve Maria Kruchowski's administrative contract as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve Ashley Kubanek letter of resignation as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried.
I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion to, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for Director of Curriculum and Instruction of Maria Kruchowski.
I'll second.
We have a second by Phil. Any discussion? All in favor, then say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion's unanimous.
Congratulations.
Okay, we are on to the district administrator report.
Sure, we have approximately 9 weeks left. Our quarter is ending at Merton Intermediate School, and right after spring break, we are again in our closing stretch here. So the other big piece of information, obviously, the CDC has come out with some recommendations that schools loosen from 6 feet to 3 feet. I have a call with Waukesha County on Wednesday to see if the state is continuing to accept that. Susan, we will follow the direction of the State Department of Health, which ultimately the county then will issue their guidance to as well. So we'll work as an administrative team to determine what that means as it relates to any changes that we possibly might make for the last 9 weeks, whether that be at the lunchroom, classrooms, or whatever it might be. It does loosen us up a little bit, and particularly as we begin to get more and more virtual students back who have gone full virtual back into our classrooms. But we also are starting to see, an influx of new students as well. So our buildings and grounds team will continue to, if we need, 3-foot dots, we'll put 3-foot dots down. But it does loosen our restrictions up a little bit throughout the classroom and in some other areas too as well. So we'll continue to get more guidance from our county. Again, on Wednesday, we'll get an update from the county as the state needs to say yes to that recommendation, and then we can move forward. The best news we anticipate moving forward is for our summer school program. We do plan on in-person summer school program for our normal 3 sessions, 3 weeks in June, 3 weeks in July, and 2 weeks in August. Again, partnering with Swallow. Everything will be housed at Merton Primary this year because of the renovation that's going to be happening here too. So that's pretty much the big news from a COVID standpoint too. So, so we'll respond, and any changes we'll make sure that we let our community know.
Okay, we're on to the Student Achievement Committee.
Yep. So we did last week. We met and discussed a couple things. One is the update to our 6-8 science adoption, which was included in the board packet. And again, a big thank you to Mary Iwanski and our 6-8 team consisting of Sarah Kasparovitz, Becky Pizzo, Melissa Seabooth, and Dave Wagner. And again, we'll have a more formal report in April to share with the board, but again, we just kind of wanted to give an update. How the updates are in that document there that is contained in the board packet. The other piece that we discussed was again, now that we're out of COVID protocol, hopefully next year, and obviously with the 3 foot, assuming that gets recommended, that allows us to be much more flexible with the learning spaces we have, which means we can go back to a more normal schedule. And you can see the attached recommendation of minutes about how we want to spend our days here at Merton Intermediate School. It gets more back to what it was pre-COVID, but again, they had a lot of great dialogue with Phil, Jennifer, and Katie, as well as Jay Posick and Mary Iwanski regarding how we're planning to utilize those minutes. Again, you see that there's a big increase in writing minutes, and again, there's some rationale that's attached to the board packet information as well. So yeah, so big thank you to the entire intermediate staff who's going to continue to revamp some curriculum and revamp how we spend that time. But again, ultimately, we want to continue high level of engagement so that we can go down that route of increasing our student achievement, but also inspiring curiosity at the same time and ultimately showing growth for our kids too. So, so there's some information just in the board packet about what things will look like next year.
Okay, now we're on to our principal report. Hey, it's on.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're glad to see a crowd. So that's a good thing. This is just Jay and I are going to lead today. It'll be a little bit shorter just because I know that last time that we had met that our specialist had given a more in-depth information about our assessments and some of the stuff that they've been doing as well. I echoed this months before. Katie, you want to go to the next one? So the first thing is we're just going to talk about our district focus and professional priorities. And so the biggest thing that we've been working on this year is all about our social and emotional learning and curriculum that way. This is really for all. This isn't just about the primary assessment area, but students, we know that we want to look back at that as we look through our curriculum review calendar. We sent out a survey to our staff, and this is the student side of it. And we just asked them, tell us what you're thinking. We got really pointed questions that we asked regarding that as well. And just hearing the feedback from what they feel is the next steps. Is this the curriculum we're talking about? What are the advantages? What are like the blows and the grows that we need to continue to do? Some of the things at the primary school you can see here that were listed, and we are digging in deeper with each of the teams, is that really they want more time for morning meetings or more activities to do. It's a very set, responsive classroom structure, and they're just looking for what can we do since that's kind of new. And one of the things that we get caught up as an adult sometimes is the games, because they feel sometimes silly to us, but we don't have experience with the games as we read through them. So having time to actually as a staff interact with the games like that we're playing and do them as a staff where laughter does come out and then they can, staff can then bring them to their classrooms. That was one of the things they were asking for. Training for new staff, that was something that we, over the course of time, maybe overlooked when we have teachers that are starting with us mid-year or right at the beginning of the year. The training that occurs is online through the second step curriculum. That's one piece of the training besides myself, Jay, other leaders, Jackie Krajewski. So they asked for training that just to remember that as we look forward, to have that in our plan for when we have new hires. And the other thing was just more lessons. There are 22 lessons in the second step curriculum that allows for 22 weeks basically of specific guided lessons. What we're doing as grade levels as a team is sitting down like, what are we seeing for each grade level? What is a specific thing? For example, 5K, tattling versus telling. That's a lesson that oftentimes needs more than one application and repeat. So that's one thing that we're doing now. Intermediate school, I'll let Jay speak to that.
We're just, we're talking more about how to schedule the lessons. We have the same number of lessons and we don't have as many weeks. We have more weeks in school than we have lessons. So how do we make sure that when we do have our SEL time, that that we're using it appropriately and what sorts of activities can we do to build upon the lessons that we have learned either the week before or maybe 2 weeks before.
One of the biggest things that we heard from the staff, and that's the leadership team that is comprised of multiple people from not only the buildings, but then also we have some of our board members there too, comes back to that understanding of how do we make this purposeful all the time. It's not just an isolated event that happens, that's continuously being built through our language, our processes, and seeing it throughout the day. So that was important. On the staff side of it, we have a survey currently out to all staff asking some questions about what are you seeing? Right now we're using Elena Aguilar's work around the onward, and then we also have the activities that we are meeting once a month as staff to not only read the book that we have provided to everyone, but then also to dig into some of the conversations and the activities to grow us as resilient learners ourselves. So there's more to come on that. These are building focuses. I will start with the highlights from the kids I'm seeing in the classrooms. Just a couple this time, just to keep it short. I have my lunch learnings. I have those 3 kiddos up there, and something that I talked about 2 times ago was all about this mental maps. And what does that really mean about mental mapping, and how do you use mental maps to frame your thinking, to talk about your metacognition around my thinking is telling me I'm thinking like this. You're talking out loud. These 3 up there, I have Sam in the middle, Colin to the left, and then also Blake. I have the posters still up in the cafeteria from when we did that together. And what the teachers have to do is take that mental map, different types of mental maps they have never seen before, and apply it. These 3 kiddos are watching that, and I'm listening to their conversation at lunch to tell me, I know what they're talking about. That's a flowchart map, and I know exactly where it goes, and they know the next steps like this. I said, you're right. How did you know that? Well, they're using them in the classroom. So that application, and even knowing that they were looking at a flowchart map, these are 2nd graders, into a 3rd grade, they could figure out what they were talking about. So that was kind of cool. Lunch learning is always happening. On top here, we've had a lot of appreciations and celebrations this past month. One of them being that we celebrated our year where we went virtual. So celebrating our new learnings and everything else, like I said. We had ice cream. We had also our picnic basket donated for all staff in both buildings. A free lunch, which was really nice to have. Our PTO gave us some kindness bars and just said thank you for all that you've done. And then also we had St. John's across the street delivered an enormous abundance of cookies to both staff. So there was a lot of appreciation going, also physically, like just seeing it, but hearing it too. So that always makes you feel toasty inside. So that's good. Family conferences were happening. You can see how we have those in-person conferences this past month. We were spaced out. That's a 1st grade classroom, Natalie Denbauer's class, there with a family, and they did something that was, digital and electronic as well. 4th grade also did student-led conferences, so that's a little bit different here in Merton, is that they started those at 4th grade. And then our 4th PTO donation, again, awesome things that we're seeing with our students that are those like sprinkles. Here is a light up table. We have multiple of them in our 4K classrooms, and the learning that's happening. Kids are so engrossed into that learning around what you can see and really look at different objects differently. So those were some of the highlights. So thank you to PTO. What we're digging into, I'll go quickly over this as well. Assessment, curriculum, and instruction, kind of just laid it out there. EMLSS, which is really that understanding of how do we include everyone in our planning on the onset. It used to be, some people think of it as being the RTI center, and really we're talking about each and every student. Over the last couple of months, we dug into looking at the data as a whole team, and then we started these individual conversations around what does this child need, how do we align it, and we pulled teams of teachers throughout the day, having a rotating person come in. So Abby Clavundi, myself, our interventionist, Corinne Meisner when she was available to talk about kids. So really looking at students across the board and saying, what am I doing in the core classroom? What am I doing if there's something else happening too, and aligning it? We know that our students that struggle the most, are most vulnerable, have the most disrupted schedules. So we know that we're attacking that a little differently, saying, how do we make sure that we're consistent across the board, because routine matters. So keeping that approach into what we're doing as a team as well, and also using the data to inform our decisions. Report cards, I've been looking at that. I read each and every report card. That's something that I enjoy doing. And I'm providing some feedback. We're aligning between the grade. Sometimes I would notice that in our classrooms, one teacher in the grade level would report out on a standard and the other teacher did not. So trying to figure that out and have that conversation about what are we missing? Where did this come from? Was it a us error, or is there something else going on that we're doing differently amongst the staff? Then what is the evidence you're gathering? It can't be tied to a one-time event. That isn't evidence. That's really driven by that one occurrence. And the other conversation is really around standard-based education. What does it mean if a student showed significant learning and understanding in trimester 1? How do they lose that and go down in trimester 2? That's a conversation we started having, because if there was enough evidence to say that the student has the standard met at a secure level, we want to believe that it's secure the next time of what happened and what's the reason it did change if it did. And then we have forward planning. It's really important to know that we have all of our students have to come in for the forward exam, even if they're virtual. I'll be reaching out to families. We've set up a schedule right now with the 3rd grade and 4th grade teachers at the primary school. I'll be reaching out to virtual families to set up that time and dates and seeing what works, flexibility with them too, but knowing they have to come in to take it in person. Thank you to Jim Binney and also Dawn Baumgartner for being the DAC on that and helping out with the assessment, sending that out, Jim, as well. Really looking at what do we need to do to get our staff ready to roll with the forward assessment, which really is our billboard in some ways. Building leadership team, these are all the things that we're working on as a leadership team. We meet right before the board meeting. We finalized our building schedule for next year. We are looking at emergency. I always have something to show. Those of you that are virtual, I wish you could see this better. But these are the emergency bags that we've been developing this year just to be consistent. So in an emergency, we can grab and go. They include things like flashlights. They have our emergency procedures, updated class lists, health information, things like that. And this is kept in a place that the teacher knows that everything's ready, bandages, things like that. So in case of an emergency, we have this. One of the key things about these bags is that that the staff also are looking at using these when they go off for like fire drills too, just to get in that habit of taking them with them. So that's one of the things the building leadership team has been working on. We were talking about volunteers and field trip. What does it mean to have volunteer expectations in our building when we can have volunteers? What types of field trips are we planning for? How many volunteers and what are the volunteer expectations? It's all about communication. We find that whenever we get into situations, there's usually just a breakdown somewhere, like there wasn't enough communication or there wasn't enough understanding on somebody's part. So the more we can communicate on the on-front. Class list, we've been talking about that. That is important to hear as a board and as a community, that we do have a rigorous process for that. It's not willy-nilly. It takes several weeks, several meetings, and we start with a certain step. There's about 7 steps to it, and then we come back to it and review it again. So it's really important that teachers have a lot of information and knowledge about that, and they're placing cohorts of kids for the best groupings of students. Since I've been here, I've had a lot of requests for teachers, or requests not for teachers, requests for students, requests for friends, and I will continue to say this each and every time, is that the request for teachers can never be a variable, because you never know, someone has a different aspiration to go somewhere else, and I will always support people where they need to go to be happy. So sometimes we request a teacher, and the teacher goes on to another grade level, or they go on to another building, something happens. So I always make sure families hear that from me. We also, again, that's why we prioritize the cohort and not so much the individual teachers. We believe all of our teachers can be successful with all of our kids. That's going to be really important. We also, that takes, for me to also, if there's specific people that have to be with certain teachers, we kind of have that part of the process too. Celebration day, we're in the full throttle with that, with the intermediate schools, coming up with how do we have a celebration day where it's COVID friendly. And then class parties for next year, kind of determining that and working with PTO in the future. And then we're really looking at learnings from this year. There's a lot of things that we learned that were really highlighting good things from this year that we want to honor and continue. And then there's some things that we don't, but some of the things we keep on coming back to, what do we wish to continue? And then it has to come back to, because when we disagree, what is most powerful for our students? Today, prior to this, we got to that point. There was almost an equal divide in a disagreement. Then we have to always go back to which one outweighs the benefits for our kids. And that's when you get the decision making. It was pretty unanimous. We knew which one was better for kids. So that's where we're at the the primary school, intermediate school.
You want to take a breath?
Yeah, I talk really fast. It's being part of a family.
That's right. I have less to say than Becca does, but it's not any less important.
Yeah,
what
it's
Becca had to say. Our 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade language arts teacher, Katie, continues to work with them. I've joined those meetings as well. What's different for the intermediate school compared to the primary school, every single teacher teaches every single subject. Over here at the intermediate school, every teacher teaches only one subject. So if I want to meet with the 5th grade language arts teachers, I do. I go to Becky Friday, meet with the 5th grade language arts teacher. She's just one. I can do the same with the 6th grade, same with 7th grade, same with 8th grade. So that is a little bit different. So we can talk about kids one-on-one with Katie. So it's the 3 of us having those conversations. So that's really important. Social studies, Katie is also working. Katie Globing is also working with our social studies teacher. Right now, we're in the middle of junior achievement. So 5th grade has BizTown. Unfortunately, they can't go to BizTown this year. That's it's kind of off limits. But Heidi Jones is still doing the curriculum, still doing all the important stuff about the business, how to do an interview. Today they were writing resumes. I mean, all the stuff that went along with BizTown is still going on there. Carrie Nimchek is doing junior achievement in 6th grade. Brian Bassick was doing it in 8th grade, and our 7th grade social studies teachers did that earlier this year. So junior achievement is a really nice program. BizTown, if you haven't been there before, it's an amazing place to go. When our 5th graders go in person, then we do take parent chaperones along, and our 8th graders will be going when they have that opportunity next school year as well. Science was mentioned a little earlier about our science pilot. Ron mentioned that. There are still these Aspire-like questions. What we found with our Aspire results in science in particular, it wasn't really the knowledge of science that was the important part. It was how do you answer the science questions that were on those Aspire tests. And then there's just so many hands-on activities that I'm seeing in science class. I get out and about all the time. Snap circuits in 8th grade, 6th grade had microscopes out, 5th grade had Dexter robotics and Spiros, all these hands-on things, and our kids at home are getting some of those opportunities as well. We didn't send any microscopes home, but we did have the opportunity to send some of the other materials home as well. So there's piloting going on, just new material that our teachers are really digging into to find out what's going to be the best science adoption for our kids for the next school year. And then Becca talked a little bit about the schedule. We started talking about new schedule here back in December with teachers, started out with our building leadership team, and then getting input for teachers, putting together what a student schedule would look like. And once we agreed that this was a really good student schedule, then we went into the what's it going to look like for staff. So what we've been able to do is create more opportunities for our students, including this new part of the building that has a lot of opportunities that we haven't had in the past. The new spaces, instead of just being utilized part of the day, we've made it work so they're going to be utilized all day long. So the building is going to be used as much as possible. Elective options, we're going to be talking about those with our kids and with our families after spring break. But what came out of that was more equitable planning time for our staff that includes planning as teams and curriculum planning. So we can really have some of those conversations face to face and not have to have it before school time or after school time, or get a sub for half a day to have those conversations. And we're in the midst of planning for the 4 exam. Jim and I just had a conversation today about what our schedule looks like. We know that we have to bring our online friends in for the 4 exam. So that will be interesting. When we did that for Aspire, I had one room that was just for our virtual students so that they didn't have to worry about mixing with our in-person students. So we'll probably have something like that going on again as we move forward. Just some pictures here on the left, book clubs. It looks like she's sitting all by herself, but there's actually a couple of students on screen there as part of the book club. And Sarah Kasperich was in another room with another student. So there was this book club happening just real time. Snap circuits, those two students there happen to actually be soldering in science class in 8th grade. Pretty cool. Band practice, it might be difficult to see, but that was our brass section for 5th grade. I've heard them start the school year, and I've heard them today. There has been amazing growth. You can actually tell that they're playing the song now. Before we weren't really sure what was coming out, but now we know. Thanks to our buildings and grounds crew, we were able to have snow soccer because we've had all of our flight activities outside. We've only had about 5 or 6 days where we've been inside. We've been lucky with the weather, and even when the weather wasn't so nice, we were still outside. But they cleared off an area in front of the primary school so we could play soccer. So there's 50 kids out there playing soccer in 5th and 6th grade. A little bit earlier, it was only a couple of weeks ago when we had that much snow out there, to be honest with you. Our volleyball, we are so fortunate that MAA and our school has allowed our kids to play volleyball. If you were wondering what all that noise was before, there's some girls' games going on, and apparently that was between games and cheering because somebody won or somebody lost, not sure, but I'm fortunate enough to get to coach our 8th grade boys. Mr. Benny has a group of 8th grade boys, and they're having a blast, even at 7:15 when they have practice with me. Thanks to robotics, in 5th grade, they're actually putting together robots and coding and all different sorts of things there. Spiros, it's really hard to see, but up by her right knee, there's a little blue circle, and use code to make that move. So today they were actually using Spiros to go through a maze that they had created on the floor. Spanish placement test. You do what you have to do. We had to have our Spanish placement test for 8th graders in the gym. They were all properly spaced. They got to hear over the loudspeakers the different audio going on there. Microscopes for 6th grade. And one of the coolest things, Mr. Hannon's birthday was last week. Jim Hannon, our custodian. And our teachers did an amazing job making sure that there were cards all over the building. They were everywhere. And then we had a little surprise party for him. But Mr. Hannon's been here an awfully long time. And the kids, and he left a voicemail message for me that I actually shared with the kids, just how much those, he said, I read every card, Mr. Posick. I can't believe the kids spent that much time showing their concern for me. So we talked about that the next day in the announcements, like, we just can't have it be a one-time thing. It has to be an all-the-time thing, whether it's Mr. Hannon or somebody else. And this is the last thing you guys can read, but I'll read it out loud. We're so thankful for the support of our community, our families, and our school board. This is from Becca and I. We are proud and honored to go to school every day with our amazing staff and students. We had a conversation today, and I said, some days I'm here, I can't believe I get paid to do what I get to do. Other days, you couldn't pay me enough to do what I had to do. We both agree that that's true, but we have so much support from you here, from our community. Our kids are so great. It's an amazing place to work. Maria, welcome to our team, and we just look forward to continuing the school year. We got a quarter to go. Ron said early on he didn't think we'd be able to stay open all year long, but because of the families and because of the support of the school board and because of our amazing staff, we've been able to keep our building open despite what happens to be in our way. So thank you so much. We appreciate you all.
For the record, that was right around May, June, July, August. May, September.
Somebody else's birthday today. Mr. Hannon's birthday is Sunday, but I think it's Dr. Russell's birthday today, but I'm not sure what that's talking about.
I'm sure all my cards are coming tomorrow. Oh, 30. 30.
Okay, we're on the new business. And we're going to talk about the virtual educational options.
Sure. Now that, again, obviously we continue to learn and we continue to monitor, what's happening and being directed by science as well as, what's being directed by our health department. We want to start to continue the conversation and begin the conversation at the board level to start discussing what kind of educational options we are going to offer next year. We know that we voted in late July, early August to have basically two options. One would be face-to-face and one would be virtual. Obviously, as we continue to monitor, and we're going to have to make a decision coming forward for this upcoming fall. So I did put in the board packet. Right now, we have less than 5% of our population. Again, we just looked at 4K through 7th grade, just missing our 8th graders. And we have approximately 35 students from 28 families as well, too. So that is our current reality as of today. Because again, like I mentioned, some families continue to come back. And we welcome anyone, whoever wants to come through the doors, as with whether that's virtual or when they move in. So, but again, just wanted to start the discussion at the board, and I'll just kind of kick it off to you guys if you have any questions for me, or if you guys want to have any comments.
Would the intent be that all of the other rules about, sorry, I should ask my question differently. Currently, we have rules in place about kids, if you have a fever or whatever, you get put in a little quarantine room or a nurse's station or whatever, and then your parents have to come pick you up and all that kind of stuff, right? As mitigation effort. is the theory that those types of things are going to stay in place even after, COVID is done?
From a mitigation standpoint, from building to ground standpoint, which handles most of the mitigation, I would say yes. We're going to continue to sanitize. We're going to continue to. I'm not going to take down the hand pumps by all the classrooms. The mitigation steps we would like to continue that we've been doing from a facility standpoint, because very similar to other schools in Waukesha County, but if we look at ours, the cold and the flu season didn't exist this year. Truly didn't exist. We've had probably the best staff attendance we've ever had and the best student attendance we've ever had. So from a teaching and learning standpoint, there's a lot of things, and Becca kind of mentioned, what do we want to continue to do? From a buildings and grounds standpoint, from a mitigation standpoint, we're going to have that same conversation at the administrative level and say, what do we want to continue to do that we feel has been effective? And what are some things that we can do to continue to promote health and safety so that kids can come to school and our staff can come to school? So, Phil, we do anticipate a lot of those mitigation steps continuing.
Okay. I think that's going to come into play when or knowing kind of what those details are might come into play, for people making the decision, if we even give people this option to make the decision in the future.
And again, that's more of an overall health and safety. We, as the science continues and as medicine continues to go forward, we're learning more and more about how COVID spreads, which is truly respiratory.
Well, even, sure, but I mean, some of the mitigation, specifically like the concept of, we can't really force parents to come get their kid, but right, like there was a much more stringent effort to, like, if a kid, throughout the day presents as being sick for whatever reason, we send them home, right? Like that's not the way that it was in the past. Or even if, kids staying home if they're sick and not coming to school at all, right? In the past, if a kid was sick, they still came to school unless they were like actively throwing up. Right, so.
Well,
I guess that was kind of the.
Ultimately, it was a parent decision to be able to send kids to school, and obviously it's our decision to send them home. So we would, again, those mitigation steps from a health standpoint to say, hey, if you have 2 symptoms, I'm not sure what 2 symptoms are going to mean next year. Those are all.
Well, I don't even necessarily mean with COVID specifically versus in general, right? As you were talking about cold and flu, that's a great example. I mean, it would be actually really interesting to like have candid conversations with the 28 families to see what their experience has been. With the trajectory that COVID pandemic at least is on, and with my experience, with our kids being virtual, like I'd have a really tough time supporting virtual as an option even. It's just not gone all that well.
Well, right, I mean, I think.
Obviously when we were making the decision for last year, things were obviously on the, severe uptick, and so now we're kind of on that trail again, so. I mean, unless something else comes along or things start to be.
Like success or not, because we had no formal training in what a virtual platform looks like, or education, or having to run essentially what these are full-time hybrid models. Like the staff, every single staff member in both buildings has just done an exceptional job at being asked to do something they had 0 training in and had very little time to process or learn. So it's not overlooked.
Many staff members have done an exceptional job, you're correct. I don't think it's fair to say that all of them have.
I think
everybody has tried many of them have tried
hard in a really difficult situation, and I don't want that to be overlooked.
I don't think we're ever going to live where we're thinking COVID is over. That's the new reality for us. There is always a challenge.
But I think Phil's point is if we take a look at the student first. I think Phil's point is some of our students have had a great, I shouldn't even say that because you're right, Phil, I haven't talked to every 35 students or 28 families, but we're not built for a virtual school. We truly are. So if we want to deliver what we feel is the best student experience, I know in talking to our staff and our administrative team, we believe that a full-fledged face-to-face program, we still believe is in the best interest of the child as well.
Well, and that's why I asked you to put this
Yes.
on the agenda now, so people can start considering, you know, when they coming back in person, and if their parents thinking about open enrollment, you know, whether they were here or not. I think the sooner a district can be very clear about what their path is going to be next year, you're going to let your community and families make more well-informed decisions.
Correct. On both ends. Yeah, because on both ends.
And I think it's also can give staff peace of mind of what they need to plan for.
Mhm. Right, yeah. And obviously, we can only make the best decision given the information that's in front of us. And we know that we have the wherewithal, at least we've done it this year. We have to go back to some point, Pete, to your point, whenever there's another pandemic outbreak, and hopefully, you know, society has learned, and hopefully we never get back there. Or all of a sudden, if.
We obviously will, right?
But
There will be another pandemic. It might be another 80 or 100 years, but there will be.
But if, you know, how do we respond to students, or do we give parents a choice? I mean, that's really what we're talking about here right now. And then what happens when we don't give them the choice? When all of a sudden the child has to quarantine for whatever reason, insert illness. You know, do we bring back virtual? So that's another conversation. The first one that would be is what's our educational options? And then we start to work down, because there are some schools that said, hey, if said student is sent to quarantine because of whatever it could be because of COVID. They said, okay, here's all of your information, here's your materials. We'll see you in 4 days. Just like you go on.
Is that for any time someone gets sick for anything, or is that just for, right? Like if you get the flu, like ideally you would quarantine when you get the flu, right? Most people, or many people don't, or even a cold for that matter, right? Like many people don't, right? But like altruistically, like that would be the best thing to do. So is that, but do we want to like put that burden on our staff that have to like always be, you know, jumping in and out of doing virtual stuff to facilitate that? Like that seems like asking too much of our staff again.
Correct. And that's
Whereas, you know, if we get another situation where there's a pandemic or whatever, and lots of people are getting sick, like that's a different story.
correct.
But just for like the everyday cold flu kind of thing, I don't see that being worth.
No, we don't either. I mean, obviously, it's an option, particularly when we start to think about a 10-day quarantine. If in fact that continues next year into next fall, a 10-day isolation, not a quarantine, because we don't believe that quarantines will be here, possibly because of the science. But if you have COVID, for instance, typically you don't find out until, you know, 3 or 4 days in. You've got a weekend there, so we would support that that virtual learning would just be just like if you were sick with anything else. But that's our recommendation right now for the board to consider. That's what we would say. And in listening to our staff, and I guess the other piece that's been a little bit frustrating is we've had to, and particularly our principals have had to do a lot of, we're really sorry, we're not going to do virtual in Florida. We're not going to do, you know,
But I mean, people still do, right?
No, correct. And that's, you know, we can only.
It's a little bit silly.
And we can only ask the questions as much as we can too. So that's really where we feel it's real important to really draw that line starting next fall. And, you know, we've been as flexible as we possibly can this year. But as we enter next fall, it would be our administrative team's recommendation for the board to consider at this point, given the science and what we have in our county, to move forward with 100% face-to-face option for learning. And not offer.
Yeah, I mean, worst case, the outcome of that is going to be some number of those 35 students open enroll somewhere else where they can do virtual.
Correct.
Well, and then, but also on the flip side, that can make our district attractive to other families who may have experienced their kids in a different relatively close district that were in some kind of hybrid model, and they felt that even their live students weren't getting what they really expected because of a teacher being spread too thin or distracted or being asked to teach live and virtually. So I mean, that could definitely, I mean, could potentially make our district attractive to people. Knowing that they have dedicated live 100% 5 days a week instruction.
As of right now, I think that's great. There's nothing showing that we need to go any other direction. But we're in the world that can change very rapidly.
So as we think about, the next steps for the board, it ultimately would be to, make a motion if to set the virtual, or I'm sorry, set the educational learning options for next fall. If the board did want to make a motion in a second and a vote, that can happen any month moving forward. So I guess that could be something we could talk about in future agenda items. Because right now it's just listed as a discussion. I just wanted to get the conversation going.
So, Katie, do you think that we should push it for April? That we make that decision so there's plenty of planning time, or do you think we can let it go out to May?
I think April is the absolute latest.
What do you think, Phil? Jennifer?
And
When is open enrollment open or closed? Like when would people have to make open enrollment decisions?
The official open enrollment season ends April 30th.
ends.
April 30th.
Well, if it ends April 30th, then I think that's something that we need to probably make a decision on now. Or we meet in whatever
Well,
capacity. And
I
that's
think
if it's
be-
something that you want to have, Lindsay.
Well, and alternatively, we could just give, I mean, we've discussed, and I mean, at least two of us, I guess, are kind of on the direction of not doing any virtual option. We could just leave it at that and then have it be a next meeting thing. Because if people are really concerned about it, trying to make a decision if they're one of the 28 families and they happen to be watching or watch later, then, we can unofficially give that as that's what we're saying is going to be our direction, just vote on it next time.
We put it out there, we're going to be making that decision at the April board meeting. We've got plenty of opportunity for families to give us.
And when I say open enrollment, the official open enrollment, there's always alternate open enrollments. There's all sorts of opportunities for and access for families to enter into our school through the open enrollment portal. It's an arbitrary date, to be honest with you.
Okay, so it truly is.
It truly is. It truly is an arbitrary date. And given that we have unlimited seats throughout the district, if a family came to us August 31st and said, I want an alternate open enrollment to your school, we would accept it.
I know, but I also want to be mindful of the people that might choose to go somewhere else because we need to honor their decisions.
So what we can do is we can, in an update, I can update to, because our families here are part of a district update, and I can follow up to the entire district to say, in the April board meeting, the school board will be voting on an educational option for the fall. At this time, there is strong board support to only offer face-to-face instruction. We understand that the open enrollment, we can reach out personally with, as well, to those 35 students and the 28 families if we need to. But there truly isn't, if you wanted to enter into the EACHIEVE or an Appleton or McFarland or a Merrill, there is no, you can get it. You can get in there. So by doing this vote in April, it's not setting a family down. It truly isn't. In particularly, there still is 4 days for that open enrollment period to continue.
All right, proceed now. Any more discussion on that? Then we'll move on to the intermediate school remodel.
Sure. So very excited to bring our plans and basically our project for the intermediate school remodel. Right now, it is looking at no more than $2.3 million. I know our goal was $2 million, and we did work with the architects, and we knew that the first bid that they came through, the cost estimate was right around $2.6 million. I had trust in the bidding process that was going to come down. And then while we were bidding the project out, we did encompass a few things that unfortunately came into play, like a new fire alarm system for this side of the building, some increased asbestos abatement that was required. So a few things that have come in, but within that 2.3 million, we also have a contingency as well as expected contingency. So CG kind of has been doing this enough to say, hey, we really anticipate some increased costs, say, in drywall repair. But we also have our 5% contingency for the whole entire project too as well. So we're very excited that 2.3 million. We also have, as per the board packet, we still plan on utilizing $2 million and then utilizing some other dollars, or $2.2 million. And we also have Fund 50 from food service is going to help offset some of that cost. Hopefully we can continue to gather donations. We're working with our PTO on some projects too as well, on some specific fundraising needs that we have, and they're willing to hopefully work with us there. Well, at the same time, we do have funds 41, 46, as well as Fund 10. And the nice part is our budget this year is looking very, very good. And with the ESSER round 2 and ESSER round 3, it is going to have the district reoccur some COVID costs, which is ultimately, they were part of our budget, which means we are going to be receiving dollars from this past year, which ultimately will increase our fund balance because it's going to come to us in the form of cash. So our cash flow has been analyzed. Even if we pull $2.2-ish billion out, we still have a nice fund of about $500,000 at our low point, because our low point this past year was $2.5 million. $2.6 million. So no need to short-term borrow or create a line of credit. The district is in sound financial position to be able to spend $2.2 million on this project. Let's be looking for that too. So, so hopefully a little bit in a second, hopefully we will, the administration is recommending the board approve $2.3 million for the intermediate school remodel. Now, would like to have some discussion with the board as it relates to throughout this process. And I did share with the board, you know, the electrical bids, the HVAC bids, the plumbing bids, and things like that. But throughout the project, there's also going to be opportunities where we are going to be spending dollars, and wanted to engage the board on how they wanted to approve that. Ultimately, there's going to be things that come up that need to be approved that are going to be over the $5,000. When anticipated, obviously, we're going to bid that out. Equipment and fixture and furniture is one of those things which we continue to gather bids for. But within that $2.3 million, all of that is encompassed into that total dollar amount. So I guess I just wanted to have a conversation with the board about, you know, when we do get the furniture bids in, do you want Ron to authorize that to say, yep, we've got the documentation of the 3 bids, apples to apples, as much as we can, and then Ron to authorize that? Or would you like to run it through the full board? It's a little bit difficult because of the timeliness about when we want to order these items. Or I can run it through the facility team to say, hey, this is what we want, this is why we want it, and kind of do it that way too. So there's a little bit more oversight from the board level. Districts have done all 3 things. They truly have.
I suggested to Rob that we just run through the facility committee. That would be fine with me.
I mean, I was a little bit hesitant to just say, Ron, go spend $2.3 million. Not that I don't trust you, but you know, from the community standpoint, I feel like that's a big enough chunk of change that, you know, we should have some extra eyeballs on it.
That would be well appreciated. Yep. So if we just ran that through the facility team, the next thing that we really need to run through the facility team is the furniture. And I'll share that with Dean and Katie. up until April 26th, and then when the board reorganizes later next month, then obviously we could have a new facility team too as well. But if we just run it through the facility team, that way, to Phil's point, we've got some more eyes on it to make sure that we're going through our process and explanation. They're just looking for a motion to approve no more than authorize $2.3 million from funds 10, 41, 46, and 50 to complete the remodel of Merton Intermediate School.
I'll make a motion to approve the authorization of $2.3 million from funds 10, 41, 46, and 50 to complete a remodel of the Merton Intermediate School.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, then say aye.
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 Motion carried. We have some bids for the asbestos abatement.
Sure, not knowing how that conversation was going to go, just wanted our first big project here is abatement of asbestos, which is going to happen shortly after the spring break begins. So we have gone out to bid, and we did get 3 bids, and the recommendation from the administration is to approve Integrity Environmental Service to complete the asbestos abatement for Merton Intermediate School remodel.
I'll make a motion to approve the Integrity Environmental Services, the asbestos abatement for the intermediate school remodel.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. And all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. We're on to discussion of the 21-22 calendar.
Sure. Last December, the board approved the student calendar. Just wanted to bring information from the state may be changing on when school districts can have their first day of school. Per state statute, you cannot start before September 1st unless you get an exemption. Exemptions come in the form of construction, basically the biggest one that they allow. Again, just as an FYI, just wanted to kind of put this in front of the board as an option if we choose to do something different, to start school a little bit earlier. Now, I'm not looking to extend the number of days, but we could start a little bit early and you can end. Instead of coming into that Wednesday, we could possibly end the Friday. So you would go into that second week of June. So just wanted to kind of put this in the back of our minds to start to think about that. I know some of the feeder schools and Arrowhead High School, for instance, have said they are not changing. They are going to start September 1st for short notice, and they didn't see an advantage unless they're going to start significantly earlier in August, 1 or 2 days. And again, they didn't feel like they could drop that on their staff, given their staff calendar as well. So again, for right now, we are planning on starting September 1st, which is a Wednesday. It's kind of a non-tradition. It's not like we're starting after Labor Day. Some years we start September 6th, September 5th, which you could be able to gather a couple of days back too as well. So I don't know if the board wanted to have any comment on that, but I just wanted to put that out in front as you could have an opportunity to grab a day off or end school early.
When we were doing calendar last year, or maybe it was even the year before, it was a huge deal for people to end the school year like a couple of days earlier. And so we made different decisions about how the rest of the calendar worked just to get out of school a couple of days earlier. So to that end, it might make sense to start on Monday instead of Wednesday if you were able to end on that Friday instead of having to go a couple of days into the next week.
What is the likelihood that will be like?
There's pretty strong support. Pretty strong support in the state legislation.
And when
I would hope to have something set because the state assembly and the state senate know that this is something that needs to be decided on very quickly. So I would assume I would have more information, some decision, hopefully by the end of the year.
Was it that big a deal with their staff? I thought they were more interested in extending Christmas.
The staff feedback we got was, they'd rather have some days off during the school year to get that mental break, to kind of catch their breath a little bit. I know it's again, just kind of more qualitatively starting the school year, kind of getting into the groove, for 3 or 4 days is feeling more than just kind of going right at 5. It does get tiresome for staff and students as well, they just kind of start to pucker out a little bit towards the end of the week. But, if it is something that becomes a reality, and if we can gather information, again, I'm not sure, because right now our staff was not scheduled to be in school August 30th or 31st. So the staff calendar that was presented to them did not have those days as work days. So, and I don't know, who's out of town those days, or who's moving their child into college or whatever it may be too. So again, you might have those one-offs.
Depending on when we're able to make that decision, we might be able to make other accommodations for, the handful of people that we would need to.
For sure.
So we're just gonna wait on.
I think it's just something that if the board can kind of think about when we are presented with the decision. Again, it would be, to Phil's point, we want to make that very quickly as possible. And we may not have anything to talk about, but just wanted to put it on everybody's radar.
Okay, we're on to future meeting and agenda items. We have, on the 26th, we did have a discussion. With action.
Yep, so we'll put that as an action item. Yep.
Anything else that the board would like to add to that meeting?
From a committee part of that, April and I would like to bring the finance committee together. We have a proposal about which funds we'd like to start to pull from as it relates to the $2.3 million, about when do we want to leverage 41 or 46. So again, we'll be pulling the finance team to talk about quarterlies, but also that too as well. So we'll just report out on that. That's not an action item. It's just kind of an info, but we will be pulling the finance committee team together for sure this month.
Okay, you're hearing nothing else.
And I guess before we adjourn, like a big thank you to both Jennifer and Dean for this is your last meeting for this term. And so thank you very much for your service. So we wish everybody the best of luck, Andrew and Chris, Jennifer and Dean, best of luck on April 6th. But again, big thank you to Jennifer and Dean for the last 3 years. And again, big thank you for that service to our community.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
so a motion and a second, all in favor, then say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.